Marketer of the Day, episode 702. 3 Pillars of Change. Lead others to lead themselves using your open playbook with Larry Dodd. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We are here with Larry Dodd, who has a company called Open Playbook, and you can find out all about that at open-playbook.com. And Larry is a keynote speaker, he's a trainer, and he's a consultant. And Larry combines the very best of what your team has to contribute, the appropriate management tools for where you are, and trains you to master them, taking you from where you are to where you need to go, building a results-driven, people-first culture that consistently exceeds expectations. So, Larry, glad to be talking to you today.
Well, it's great to be here.
Oh, well, fantastic. And so as far as what it is that you do and what you've created and what makes you stand out and unique, what do you do differently? And what problem do you solve that other people can't or don't solve?
Well, when you think about how organizations make change, we typically think of things like spreadsheets and flow charts and process and all of those things, and they're critical elements to the change process. But the most important element that underlies those, the foundational part, is building the relationship that supports the trust required to make those things execute. And there's really a 3-step process that I developed with Open Playbook that makes for effective leadership in driving those processes.
So when you say effective leadership, what does that look like exactly? And when you're helping out these organizations lead more effectively and take them through your 3-step process, what is that before picture like? What is the mess that exists without your magic?
Well, I think a lot of times within the business arena, the pressure to make change is very high, and the consequence of not making change also is high. But really, change is a process that should be occurring every day. And as leaders, we're charged with leading people. And the first thing that we need to do, the first pillar within the Open Playbook methodology, is you have to know yourself. You have to do your homework so that you understand what you bring to the game, what skills, talents, and temperaments that you start with and that you have to offer that nobody else can offer. Once you realize and have done your homework and have a good handle on that, then you can start to think about the change process. And you really get to the second pillar, which is the playbook that you're going to create and you're going to develop. And what that is basically being able to see other people clearly because you have a really clear handle on yourself and what you have to offer, so that as you build the change plan and you build the people who will execute it, you have a good idea what you need and how to develop it. And then finally, the third pillar, and probably the most important, is that you build the playbook that you give away. And when I say give away the playbook, it really is critical that you think about who are you going to give the playbook away to, the playbook of you, and why. And specifically, if you make your choices right, you make your choices wisely, and you build the right people, your change initiative will far outstrip whatever vision you have for success.
Fantastic. So you're saying that these 3 pillars include, number 1, knowing yourself, knowing what skills you start with. Number 2, know what playbook that you need to create, because once you've seen yourself, now you can see people's skills clearly. And then number 3, you have that playbook that you give away to specific people and for specific reasons. And so just to make sure that we're really getting a grasp on this here, when you say in that first pillar where you know yourself and you know what skills that you have, you take that inventory, what do people usually come up with when they're figuring out what existing skills they have and what are the important ones?
Well, it's really interesting because I refer to that as the playbook that we start with, the playbook that we're given. And sometimes we find that we're right on track. We're working right within that swim lane of where our skills and talents are. Things are natural. They're authentic. And we're on our game. But many times, and this was the case with me especially, you find it through frustration. Things aren't working, and you can't understand why they're not working. And so it leads to that searching to find out what your temperaments are. What do you lean toward? Are you a people person? Do you like to look at facts and figures? How do you take in your information? What do you think about when you see yourself and other people? Do you see strength or do you see weakness? Those are some of the things that really start to develop with an eye towards moving towards finding that inherent strength that we all have to offer, and which is different in each one of us.
And as far as you personally, with you figuring out your learning style and these frustrations and these temperaments, what did you land on as far as your inherent strength?
Well, my inherent strengths were making change, and really, more specifically than that, building people and being able to see the strength in people that was required in a given situation. In a change initiative, some people are going to be very well suited for a particular change, and other people maybe not so much. And the key to success often is getting the right people in the right place with the right attitude at the right time. And so in my case, I was working in the accounting arena, oddly enough, and became very frustrated when the change stopped and the growth stopped. So much so that it led me to visiting with a career counselor at my request, who was seriously contemplating a career change. What fell out of that, or came out of that, is an understanding of, in this case, my Myers-Briggs, and I realized my temperaments were 180 degrees the opposite way of most typical accountants. Now, you might think that ended my accounting career, and it could have, but actually what happened was it led me to a wonderful niche within that arena where not many accounting and finance professionals had the temperament and the aptitude and the appetite for change that I did. And it led me to a wonderful career within a niche that not many people had to offer.
Fantastic. And you always hear about niching down or in becoming more of a specialist. That way, when someone has a really specific problem, then they know that you're just the right person to solve that. And then you can charge more and, more importantly, be a better fit for what you do. And I think that maybe some people out there, whether they're a business owner or in a career, maybe things just aren't quite right. It's almost there, but maybe they're in a similar situation as you, where the change and the growth stopped or the Myers-Briggs doesn't quite fit. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Maybe it is. Maybe it could be a bad thing if we know there's a problem and ignore it. But it turned out to be a good thing in your case because it allowed you to evolve into this other career and not just remain stagnant.
Well, that's absolutely right. And really, if you think about it, it's a call to action. Something has to change here. Something has to be refocused on or readdressed. And once you find that space that is only you, that you have to offer, it gives you a level of authenticity that's attractive in the right situation. And it gives you the confidence to know exactly what you're looking for, so that you're the good fit for the position you're looking for at the time you're looking for it.
And in your case, you say you went from being a regular accountant like everyone else into, I've seen that you've worked with Major League Baseball, you've gotten into speaking. So what have you, as a result of all this, grown into?
Well, it's very interesting, but it led directly to an experience in Major League Baseball with a team that had just been acquired, and they were looking for change, and I was the person who was hired to provide it. Had I not done the groundwork and the homework shortly before that experience or opportunity, I might never have found it or had the confidence to step up and take it. That, ironically enough, led to the training arena and teaching people how to speak in front of a group, but more importantly, how to interact and lead in a positive way through people. So it just became a natural progression of one logical step after the next, built on the confidence of knowing myself just a little bit better.
I love it. And solving problems along the way. And so when you are helping these organizations make their change and lead better and interact with a group and all those other things, do you see organizations or people going wrong in the same way again and again? Is there a low-hanging fruit here, or is there like a big number one mistake that you immediately see most of the time when you're doing this consulting?
Well, I think that the biggest mistake that I see is really the lack of self-knowledge and the lack of an orientation to develop people based on trust. And when we can see other people clearly and authentically, we can generally see talents and skills that they may not know, they may not acknowledge, or they may be afraid of. The closer we get to that natural, authentic state of who we are, the more frightening it becomes. And so by building a foundation of trust that lies underneath the spreadsheets, it lies underneath the flowcharts, it lies underneath the change, now you find the people to develop. When you hear those whispers of change, you can coax them out and help people to start to see the potential that they really have to offer. This is the type of thinking and thought process that I try to take leaders through, because leadership is about leading people. And so those are the changes that we see frequently. Those are the changes I look for. And after a while, you'll find those changes actually start looking for you.
And how does that happen? Just from getting into the practice of this and making it a habit to be aware of these things? Like, how does it take on a life of its own?
Well, so imagine your interactions with people, and inside, outside the business world. When we're not confident, it causes people to not be confident in us. When we're not authentic, it causes people to question us and be concerned, and it doesn't bring their best self. But when we can come with a level of self-knowledge where we know who we are, we know what we have to offer, and we are able to demonstrate that through an increased confidence and a strength in building relationships, then that coaxes it out of other people and allows them to be able to start to express those type of strengths and abilities that we now can develop.
Fantastic. So have that self-awareness, know ourselves better, be more authentic. That way we have that increased confidence, and then everything just seems better, seems more like it's quite right. And so with all of your different travels and all your different consulting and all the different like types of people that you've helped and different problems you solved, does any particular story or case study come to mind to really explain to us some kind of change that you've made here? Any fun stories like that?
Well, it's interesting. I had years ago, I had a gentleman that worked for me, and he actually started as a senior accountant. And I noticed that each time I asked the question, he was the one who responded to me. Now, he may not have responded directly, but he held the answers to the questions that we were asking. We were in a rapidly changing environment. And so I watched him and I listened, and I started to build a relationship with him. And as our change initiative developed, there became opportunities for him to grow. And so as I found out more of his story and listened for more of his strengths, those opportunities became really consistent and congruent with what he had to offer. Now, the surprise in all of it was he didn't know that. He didn't know the extent of how strong he really was. And I was able to develop him, and really he developed himself, but together we were able to move him two positions within the organization up within a period of less than 2 years. Very successfully, I might add.
Super cool. And the common thread I'm hearing in our conversations so far is that we all have skills or positive attributes that even we ourselves are not aware of. And we sometimes need those outside people looking in from an objective point of view to know about the things that you said earlier, something about how there are things that we're sometimes not aware of, or we don't acknowledge, or we're afraid of acting on those things. And it might take someone else coaxing that out of us. And so speaking to that, you said that these three pillars are number one, the playbook that you're given. And then the second step in the process here is to create playbook. So what does that mean exactly? Like what is a playbook? Are we talking like an actual like a document, or what does this playbook look like and what's in it?
Well, so a playbook can start with a document, but really the concept of developing a playbook centers around developing, first of all, whatever obvious change you're looking to make, and being really clear with people about where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, and what it looks like when you get there. But more importantly is that you demonstrate by your actions and by your own self-growth that you're developing yourself as you're developing other people. And what I mean by developing other people is you're asking them to change, to do something different, to embrace a new idea or a new way of doing things. We all get in ruts on how we approach things, and we get comfortable. And when we get comfortable, change becomes very frightening. And so if I, as a leader, am developing my own playbook and improving myself and leading by example, at the same time I'm encouraging others to move towards a goal that can be very frightening, then they're going to be stronger and more likely to go in the direction that I want them to, and that they need to, really. Now, in terms of the playbook that you develop, I know that if I'm pushing a change initiative or creating a change initiative and driving it through an organization and working with people, I know that if I create a vision for where I want to be when we finish, I'm going to create it as vivid as possible, make it as alive as possible. And I also know that if when we finish the change initiative, it looks exactly like I painted it, I will have failed. You know why? As a leader, when I'm developing a playbook and I'm developing the people to lead it, I'm developing people who will make it better. They will make the process better than I could have imagined it, because the idea is that we start to unleash what they know about the business and what they know have to offer to take it further than I can possibly see it. That's what I measure success by, and it resides in their court and not mine.
Well, you're making a lot of sense here, and it all seems to tie back to these concepts you're mentioning of trust and teamwork and not trying to do it all yourself. And I love that. That's your phrase, or you're saying there, that you want the end result to be better and slightly different than the vision that you planned, because other people are involved with it and other people figured out things that maybe you hadn't anticipated in a good way. And so when you make this playbook, is this a permanent thing, or do you develop like different playbooks throughout your career or your lifetime? Or like, what kind of timeline are we talking about here when you say that you have this vision and these goals? What length of span of time is it, or is it different for everybody?
Well, it's actually a living thing. It becomes a way that you do your business of being you. And what I mean by that is we might have a change initiative that's a 6-month initiative. Take a system conversion that requires people to really rethink how the organization works from the ground up. Well, in 6 months, that change initiative might be complete, but really, when you're changing the culture of an organization, you're trying to change the heartbeat of that organization and the way that people think about how they do their job, how they interact with each other, how they view change, and how they initiate change. You're really trying to move the needle organizationally. So not so much as a destination. This is a journey. This is a path. And this is something that allows us to continually think about how we improve things, how we make them better, how we build people, who we build, and why.
And when you're talking about changing the company culture and making everyone work together better, as far as the end results, the benefits of this, does anything come to mind as far as tangible things or something that really stands out to you as something that shows as far as people getting along better? Or like, what's a really good benefit for people using this playbook versus not using it?
Well, it's constant innovation, because if you stand still, really, by definition, you're going to be falling behind. Business is a competitive environment. It's supposed to be. And so that challenges every one of us to be a little bit better today than we were yesterday, and a little bit better tomorrow than we are today. That requires creative thought. It requires continuous improvement, which is a term that has been used in many arenas. But none of those things can truly happen. It's like a muscle. If you're a weightlifter and you're lifting weights, it's a process. You do it over time, and pretty soon it becomes your way of doing things. And that culture can apply to a computer system that leads to something different, that leads to something different. And the idea is that the organization always is moving forward. because it's building a culture that supports that, that values that drives that, and it builds people. They see that this is a fit for me.
And as far as people implementing this, do people get stuck in kind of the same traps in making this happen, or do you anticipate if people inventory their skills and make this playbook? Do you see people getting stuck anywhere along the way, or are there certain like do's and don'ts or gotchas to watch out for?
Well, there's a few places. I think one place we all get stuck is in, what should I be doing? What title should I have? What should I be doing in other people's eyes, rather than saying, really, where do my true strengths and abilities lie? What do I really have to offer, and how do I advance that, and how do I trust that process? I think a lot of us get stuck there. I will say in probably the first 8 years of my career, I struggled with those exact issues, and it was only through the pain of self-discovery that it moved me to the next level.
And how did you get that self-discovery? Was it a matter of constantly revisiting that, or like having the belief that it would work out, or how did you break through from being frustrated to making this change thing work?
Well, in my case, it was through frustration. I was at a point where I was so frustrated that I was making everybody unhappy, myself and everybody that worked with me. And it got to a point where I knew I couldn't continue and under the same circumstances and survive. And so I sought out help. I went and saw a career counselor, did some work. And honestly, when I took, my case, the Myers-Briggs, when I took the Myers-Briggs, it was really like somebody turned a light on in a dark room, and I totally got it. It didn't give me the answers, but it gave me better questions. The ironic thing around that is going from the point of complete frustration to really now having a light and a vision. The biggest break of my career followed within months, and that was the Major League Baseball team opportunity, in which I was really charged, along with the rest of the management team in the acquisition, with leading change in a very high-profile environment. It was totally a career maker for me, and I never would have been ready for it hadn't I done the work.
And along the lines of doing the work, do you recommend that everyone take the Myers-Briggs test so that way that they know their type, and that way they have a starting point, especially if things don't feel quite right?
I think that there's a number of different assessment tools that can be used. I think that provides a starting point. One I've become very fond of and actually am certified to give is the Gallup Strength Finders. But I've done a number of them over the years, and I think there's a risk of becoming too confined by the results of a test rather than using it as a guideline for better questions about yourself that really only you can answer.
That's great. So we're all unique, and don't let that test be a crutch, but maybe it will reveal things to you if you're better suited to be a people person or not, or if you are better suited in a different career path or anything of that nature. And so we said that there are these three pillars, right? There's that playbook that you start with, there's the playbook that you create for yourself, and then on that last pillar, when you say that there's that playbook that you give away to others, does that just come about naturally in you making your own playbook, or is there additional work involved in getting to this finishing point?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. Ideally, over time, as you get more accustomed to looking at things in this manner, it becomes more natural. When you think about a leader, the currency of a leader, the one thing they never have enough of is time. It's what they invest. It's how they make things happen, and they have to spend their time wisely. And so when you think about giving away your playbook, you're really giving away your experience. You're giving away what you have to offer that nobody else can offer. And it's important to realize that you have to be careful in who you're developing and choose the right people who will benefit from that knowledge. So why is that important, the matter of choice? When we think about employee retention today, we think about, when look through the news, we see all kinds of different things that companies do to retain good employees. They give them more money, they give them more perks, they give them more tangible material things. The one thing a leader has to offer that nobody else has to offer is their experience, is their heart, is their passion. And those are the things that can't be offered by anybody else. So when you think about employee retention, when you can make that connection with a key employee who you're developing, your chances for retention are going to be much higher, and you're going to serve your organization much better.
And when you say give away this playbook, are you saying give it away publicly or to everyone, or are you only letting specific people who need this in on the plan?
Well, I think you're working with people you're developing within your organization. You're mentoring them. You're sharing of yourself. Not everybody will be ready for what you have to offer. So if you're building somebody, for example, to go from an individual contributor into a managerial role, there are certain things that leaders have by definition been doing that have got them where they've gotten, good, bad, and indifferent. And it's that mentoring of sitting down and really taking the time to explain what your experience is, the good and the bad and the ugly, because it's all there, and helping them to become better because they worked for you. And so you have to be selective because you just don't have enough time, which is your major currency.
Well, great. So you can, because you've already blazed the trail for them, then you can make their journey to where they need to go a lot easier than yours was because you were mentoring them. And so if there is someone out there in podcast land who's listening and you want to speak directly to them, how do they know that they have a problem that you can help with? What's your ideal client here? And how does someone know that you're a good fit to have a conversation with them to help them get their employees doing some of these things we're talking about here?
Well, I think the ideal client is somebody who's kicking off a major change initiative and realizes that it's going to require a cultural change with their organization or their team. That change starts at the top, and it starts with the leader because people will follow what they model from us. And if we're modeling the right things and the right values, then it gives us the proper foundation upon which to put a strategic plan that is really more task-oriented, more focused on building the organization and taking it where it needs to be because you build trust. So, and it starts really with the three pillars. Do you have the right leaders in the right place with the right attitude at the right time? And if you do, then are they building their people in the same way? Do they know who they're building? Do they have the right approach to building people? Do they have the right playbook? And then finally, are they giving away their playbook? Are they developing the person? And frequently you'll see that happen in the later hours of a day or over lunch or at a time when it's inconvenient because that's what's convenient for the business. One way to measure hard of the people you're developing, how far are they reaching? Those are the types of organizations that I can offer help to and that I provide the best support for.
Fantastic. Well, a lot of this makes quite a bit of sense, and I think that this is something that we all need to be keeping in mind, that we need to know ourselves, we need to grow, we can't stagnate, we need to have these goals, we need to have this playbook. That way we can make our organization the best as it can be, and we can make good use of our skills and live the best lives that we can be and be fulfilled. And if people are listening here and they want to take the next step with you, they want to reach out, they want to contact you, what sort of contact information or website addresses do you have for us today?
Our website address is www.open-playbook.com. That's a great way to contact me. Likewise, my cell phone number is 925-448-4122. Also another good way to contact me. But we'd be happy to share more with you, tell you more about what we have to offer, and look forward to talking to you.
Awesome. And just to recap there, that phone number is 925-448-4122. 4122 if you want to give Larry and his team a quick call. And then the website is open-playbook.com. Do you have any final parting words of wisdom to tell everyone else before we wrap up things here today, Larry?
Well, I mean, it's just that when you have an open playbook and you lead with an open playbook and you're developing yourself and others and you're giving away and building the right people, the advancement of people in your organization and people you're investing in is absolutely staggering. And it has been in my career, and I can show you how it can work for you as well.
Please subscribe, rate, and review our show at marketeroftheday.com/iTunes and like us on Facebook at marketeroftheday.com/Facebook.